The effort to get him reelected continues all across the country, including in Virginia, where the early vote has already, of course, begun. We're in election season now. It's not just election day anymore. Lots of people have been casting their ballots across the Commonwealth, and the polls are very tight in Virginia. Last week, here at the WMAL, Corey and I, we took the WMAL truck out to Fairfax County, and we were voting. We had a massive gathering of listeners getting together. Lots of people voting that very first day. That continues this week. We're going to do this tomorrow in Arlington. Corey and I will be headed to Arlington to the Courthouse Plaza there at 8 a.m., donuts in hand, coffee in hand, and not just for us, donuts to share. We'll have all of that to share. And among the people we're going to see there tomorrow is my next guest, Matthew Hurtt, joins us now. He's the chairman of the Arlington Republican Party, and he's on the phone. Hello, Matthew. Good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, it's great to be with you. And just like Donald Trump, Arlington Republicans are preparing to send a strong message to voters that we are here to find Republican voters everywhere in the 26.2 miles of Arlington.
So one of the reasons I want to do this tomorrow, Matthew, is that I do think that, a lot of people, I've had some people be like, why Arlington? Why are you going there? Because I think that when you look at races in Virginia over time, especially these last 2 decades, let's say, it turns out that when Republicans in Northern Virginia turn out, that often plays a role in determining how the entire statewide election goes, correct?
That's absolutely right. From 2020 to 2021, there was a 5.6 percentage point swing toward Republicans in Arlington alone, accounting for about 10% of Glenn Youngkin's margin of victory, about 6,000 votes in Arlington. And so we are engaged in an aggressive plan to reach tens of thousands of Republican voters, those who vote all the time and those who never vote. We're dropping 25,000 sample ballots in the mail next week, and we've been out at the early voting locations every day since last Friday, and the Arlington Democrats are getting a little anxious.
When you say they're getting anxious, my understanding of Arlington Democrats, and it's assisted by the excellent reporting of Corey and Ganamort here on the Vince Coglianese show, is that they're among the most belligerent Democrats in the state. Is that your view?
The most belligerent and the most smug. So just this week, Corey stopped by earlier in the week, and his lovely neighbor was there. Very unfriendly woman. But today at lunchtime, the beginning of the week, they had 1 or 2 volunteers. Today at lunchtime, they had more than doubled it to 5 volunteers because the Arlington Republican poll greeters who are passing out red sample ballots are friendly, approachable, nice. We aren't aggressive. And they had 5 poll greeters out there to combat our poll greeters. So they are a little nervous. Arlington Democrats spend a lot of time playing in elections in Pennsylvania and North Carolina and other states. And as my friend Morton Blackwell says, keep a secure home base. They've ignored Arlington for so long that we, the Arlington Republicans at arlingtongop.org, are organizing, and we are out organizing them in this early vote effort.
Behind enemy lines, you're in there. So when you say that they have Democrat greeters, that conveys, typically when you say greeter, conveys like a friendly demeanor. Like if you were to swing by their booth right now, Matthew Hurtt, and give them a wave or a hello, would they be warm to you?
One of them said just yesterday to one of our Republican poll greeters, please don't stand anywhere near me. We had a young lady earlier in the week who was passing out sample ballots who every time she spoke to a voter, Corey's neighbor would interrupt and say, don't you want the blue sample ballot? Don't you want to talk about higher taxes? Don't you want to talk about paying higher taxes? All of these things. So the Democrat poll greeters are aggressive. Greeter tends to have a positive connotation, but it certainly doesn't in Arlington. And we are looking actually to capture on video some of these untoward and negative interactions so we can actually show the people what Arlington Democrats stand for, and that is being rude and engaging voters in a way that just shows how smug they are.
Well, Matthew Hurtt, in fairness, if the Democrats were my team, I'd be bitter too because I'm coming in with a very weak hand. It's like your team is destroying the country, and then you're supposed to sell this to people like, hey, you want more of this disaster? Take our sample ballot. I'd be pretty upset too if I was, a dead ender on that issue.
There's a smart guy on Twitter named Christian Hines, and he's parsing out the early vote numbers across Virginia.
Yeah.
And what it shows is that Republicans, low propensity, they don't turn out that often. Low propensity Republicans are outperforming low propensity Democrats, and we are tracking for possibly even better than 2021 early vote numbers, but it takes turning out Republican votes in Arlington. We know there are 25,000 of them, and the Arlington Republican Committee is looking everywhere to get them out to go vote, and that's why we're so honored to have you and Corey join us tomorrow morning at Courthouse at 8 a.m.
What are the chances that all 25,000 of those Arlington Republican voters are listening right now? It might be. We might have some good odds. And if you're one of them and you haven't voted yet, let's do it tomorrow just so we can get, some sense of the strength there. And also we can knock out all those votes right away and then you don't have to deal with it, right?
And we texted thousands of folks today. There'll be another email update to about 10,000 folks this evening.
Yeah.
We're knocking on doors, calling folks to let them know. We sent sample ballots last year, and I talked to a voter who said, my wife and I are federal employees. We never vote in the election. This is the first Republican mailing we've gotten since Ronald Reagan was president, and both of us turned out to vote because the Arlington Republican Committee told us to, and that's what we're looking to do this year.
I love that. But I do have to offer one stipulation. I can't afford 25,000 donuts. My wife's going to kill me if I try to buy 25,000 donuts. So we'll do our best tomorrow, but I'm happy to just get people out there. I think it'll be really good. You mentioned, Matthew Hurtt, low propensity voters. When you use a phrase like that, what you're referring to are people, as I understand it, who haven't voted in many of the past elections, the recent elections. They're just not. They almost never show up. But this time, it sounds like some number of Virginia voters who've maybe never voted before are actually doing it now.
The Trump campaign is doing something under the radar that isn't making the news. They are connecting primarily with low propensity voters. And you're right, Vince. Those are voters who would vote for our entire ticket if they voted, but they almost never do, not even in presidential years. And so those are the individuals. This is going to be a high turnout election, presidential year, and there's a population of 2 to 3 to 5% of voters who just don't clue in. They don't come out and vote, and we are working around the clock to touch base with them. That's why our sample ballot mailing is so large.
Yeah.
I told the state party we want to mail as many Republicans as possible. So if you've even thought about voting Republican in Arlington, but you haven't, you're probably going to get our sample ballot mailing in a couple of weeks.
Matthew, how many elections have you done here in Arlington?
Well, Virginia is for lovers of elections. I moved from outside Nashville, and in 2009, my first race was Ken Cuccinelli for Attorney General, and so I've been involved for as long as I've been here, about 15 years.
Okay, so if you could describe it now, and I know the way that election season has changed through the years might make it hard to compare, but how does it compare now versus, say, when you arrived in 2009? Can you detect any difference in Republican enthusiasm?
Well, in 2012, Mitt Romney got 30% in Arlington. In 2020, Trump got 17%. So we're working back to that 30% number. I can tell you, though, that enthusiasm and energy is high, and we're taking back block by block, precinct by precinct. We're finding 5 voters here and 10 voters there so that we can ensure statewide Republican victories and eventually in 2027, the next off-year election in Arlington, a local victory for something cool like sheriff or treasurer.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, we'll see what's happening, and we'll be able to take the temperature tomorrow in Arlington as we all gather together as early voting begins. That's 8 o'clock at the Courthouse Plaza. We'll be out there to tailgate the vote. I think it's going to be a good time. I love doing this, and we've got less than 6 weeks now before the election, so before actual election day. So now's our chance to seize the moment and get those ballots cast. Matthew Hurtt, chairman of the Arlington Republican Party. I'll see you tomorrow morning, sir. Thank you.